Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Learning Curve from Valley Anesthesia. We're here today talking to Dr. Debra Malina, and she is one of our one of our past AANA presidents. Debbie and I know each other from, I don't know, way back when we first met. And I recently was on a trip to Cuba with Dr. Malina and through the Citizen Ambassador program. So I approached Debbie and asked her if we could do a podcast, because when I got back, when I told some of my CRNA friends about what I was doing with the Citizen Ambassador program, and they had a lot of questions for me. So I thought I'd put this out there. Most people know about mission trips and stuff, but there's other ways to support your profession internationally. So I'm going to have Debbie introduce herself and give us a little bit background about herself. And so welcome, Debbie, to the Learning Curve.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, thanks for asking me to talk about this program. I've been doing this now for over a decade, and it's been life-changing for me. A little bit of my background. I am a former president of AANA. I was president from 2011 to 2012. I've been a CRNA now 27, 28 years. Have worked in all kinds of different practice environments. I've been in academia. Most recently, I retired twice, but I'm back at work a couple days a month, doing something new for me, which is working in a ketamine clinic, but that's a discussion for a different day. I'm thrilled that I'm still able to lead these delegations, these international delegations around the world. The director of the Citizen Ambassador program had reached out to me back in 2011 and asked me if I would be interested in leading an international delegation of nurse anesthetists in a people-to-people type program. Unlike the mission trips or some of these educational programs where you go to an exotic area, like you go to Saudi Arabia or you go to Barbados or whatever, and you attend classes for half a day and then you go out and play for the rest of the time. This is actually an educational delegation where we go and we meet our peers, or what are close to be our peers, nurses who provide anesthesia and nurse anesthetists, and also other healthcare professionals. We visit hospitals, we visit surgery centers, we meet with ministers of health, and do a cultural and educational exchange. That's kind of the long and the short of it.
Okay. And so currently that's through the Citizen Ambassadors program that's run by its parent corporation called Cultural Vista. Correct. And Debbie was explaining to me that the Citizen Ambassador program is sort of the healthcare professional wing of that Cultural Vista organization. So how does, if this is something that you're interested in or would want to participate in and get more information about, what happens, how does the information get disseminated to our CRNAs in the United States, and what should a CRNA look for to get some more information about this program?
Well, the program planning aspect starts months and months and months before the information is disseminated. As you said, we just came back from Cuba, and in the debriefing that I do with the Citizen Ambassador program, as well as looking at the evaluations and the feedback from the CRNAs that attended, I work with Citizen Ambassador to determine where there are areas of interest that people would like to go. I also insist on going to countries that have nurse anesthetists. So working with the International Federation of Nurse Anesthetists database and seeing which countries are members of IFNA, and also those countries such as Cuba that are not members of IFNA for a variety of reasons, but they still have nurse anesthetists there. With that in mind, then we look at which countries we would like to go to. I think our next program we pretty much decided is going to be Greece in spring of 2024. So once we get that hammered out and some of the logistics that I don't have to deal with from Citizen Ambassador, they contact AANA and work with executive director, which is now Bill Bruce, the CEO, and get their approval to promote this program. And so with that in mind, our policy is that we send out blast emails to every member of the AANA. Now, AANA does not give member emails to Citizen Ambassador. They simply act as the agent to send those emails out for Citizen Ambassador. They also will put it in some of their news bulletins and occasionally on the website. So every CRNA that's a member of AANA will get an invitation, and those usually go out 4 or 5 months before the delegation is to take place, because we understand that a lot of CRNAs, they have to put in for vacation time well in advance. And so we try to get it out, the invitations out as soon as possible. So hopefully for Greece, those will be going, that invitation will be going out within the next few weeks.
Okay. Do you know what island you're going to go to in Greece? Because Greece, I think, has about a gazillion islands.
Right. I know.
Quote
I
myself on
don't
an actual
know. And
number.
again, Citizen Ambassador figures out the logistics for it. Again, where is nurse anesthesia primarily given? So we like to spread out. In most countries, we will go to more than one city. So we may land in Athens, spend some time there, and then hop on a plane and fly to another city and visit healthcare professionals, hospitals, etc. there. So they determine the logistics. In a country like Cuba, with all the restrictions, we don't have the ability to do extensions after the trip because of the limitations in that country, but usually there are cultural extensions that are offered. So since we're in Greece, they may offer a 3 or 4 day extension where you can go to specific islands and visit specific things. So if we don't necessarily get to go where you want to go during the educational portion of the trip, then you have an opportunity to extend afterwards. And they take care of all the logistics with regard to that. My responsibility, once they have the program pretty much in place, is then I go ahead and apply for continuing education credits through the AANA to make sure that we do get CEs for this endeavor.
Okay, and those are going to be Class A credits, right?
They are Class A credits, yes.
Okay, so a great way to get your Class A credits while having fun and learning new things. What if I want to bring my husband or my partner with me? Can I do that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
They have a program for non-CRNA attendees who attend with a friend, a significant other, a spouse, whatever. I think on the last trip, we probably had 7 or 8 non-CRNA attendees, and they have their own parallel program that goes on when we're in professional meetings and doing our professional activities during the day, they're doing cultural activities. You know, they're going fun places and doing great things. And then we usually meet up for lunches and definitely for dinners. So it's not like we're totally separate. We do get together during the day, and definitely in the evening for group dinners.
So I could even bring like my bestie, right?
You
It
could
could
bring
just
your
be a
bestie.
friend.
You
Yeah.
could bring your bestie. I brought
Okay.
my sister-in-law with me to
Oh, that's so
Cuba.
great. So, okay, well, I didn't really think about it like that, but we have some good friends who are currently in Italy for 2 years because he works for Lockheed Martin. So maybe we should talk him into meeting us in Greece.
You absolutely can do that. And we actually, when we were in Vietnam, there was an American CRNA who was on an extended expat trip there, and she met up with us at the Ministry of Health and participated in the discussions with the Ministry of Health. So they're very open to having other individuals other than CRNAs attend. And like I said, they do develop a wonderful parallel program for them.
Okay, so just for the people who don't know anything about this, Citizen Ambassador typically will charge you a fee, right? And then they're gonna make all the arrangements for airfare, lodging. Well, I know in Cuba, almost all our meals were taken care of. Is that usually the case, or does
Yes.
it just kind of depend on the country?
Yeah, yes, that's usually the
Okay.
case. Now, they do not take care of your international airfare. So,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
me flying from Ohio, if I like when I flew, well, again, going to Cuba, it was different. We couldn't fly directly into Cuba. We all met in Miami and then flew in from Miami. Um, but I would fly to Greece on my own. We have, from the time we get there to the time we leave, we have a delegation manager who is bilingual. And they meet us at the airport, they put us on the bus, they take us to the hotel. And then during the day, they attend with us all the different meetings, they act as interpreters. And if they do not have the linguistic ability to act as an interpreter, then Citizen Ambassador provides us with an interpreter for the program. So the hotel is included quite often. Welcoming drinks are included, drinks with dinner. People have asked that we not have 100% of our time being organized by Citizen Ambassador. So, for example, in Cuba, we had the one evening where we were able to go out on our own and do whatever we wanted to do in the evening. Again, Cuba is much more restricted than most countries, so we didn't have the ability to have as much freedom as we normally do when we go to other countries. But Citizen Ambassador takes care of all the in-country travel. So as I mentioned, we may fly into Athens and then fly somewhere else. They take care of all the in-country travel as well. They take care of any visas that we may need to have, and make sure ahead of time that everybody has their passports, all their documentation, and everything in place. So we have relatively smooth travel, and both to the country and in country.
Okay, that's great. Can you give us, so we talked about Cuba. We were just in Cuba, and it was very interesting to when we did meet with the nurse and anesthetist, we could relate with them in many ways. We have some parallel experiences that we found with their practice and ours. Now, their practice was always supervised. In Cuba, they supervise 1-to-1, which seems like would be very expensive. But that's what that country has chosen. Their education level was different than ours. So tell us a little bit about Maybe you can tell us about some of the countries that you've been to with Citizen Ambassador and some of the CRNA practices that you've found there, because I can only speak about Cuba because that was my first trip.
So I had been to Cuba before, and I can tell you that the vibe in Cuba now is very different than it was when I was there about 10 years ago.
In a good way, or?
No, it's much worse now.
Okay.
Obviously, economically, they're in the worst economic period that they have been in the history of the country. As you know, Michelle, I mean, when we went, we took Tylenol, aspirin, Advil, vitamins, because they need them there and they cannot get them. There is food scarcity, so malnutrition is pretty bad there right now, as you know. There's not water everywhere. The restrooms don't have water. But from a professional standpoint, when I was there before, the physicians and the nurse anesthetists were quite open about the fact that the nurse anesthetists practice very much like we do here in the United States. They may work in an anesthesia care team, or they may work independently. In fact, part of Cuba's structure for healthcare professionals is they all must do international healthcare service. And so if you are a nurse anesthetist or a physician, you must go to other countries and volunteer to provide anesthesia services. Those nurse anesthetists practice independently when they go to other countries. And in sidebar conversations, even this time, the physicians acknowledge that the formal policy of the government of Cuba is that nurse anesthetists work under the supervision and direction of anesthesiologists, but in practice, that's not reality. So very, very different than what I heard from them the last time and what I heard from them this time. Other countries that we've been to, it was interesting. We went to Vietnam, and in Vietnam, and there is a public health care system in Vietnam where everyone gets health care, regardless of their ability to pay or not. But there are also private hospitals that people that have the financial resources can pay to have private health insurance and go to private hospitals. Those private hospitals only utilize nurse anesthetists. The public hospitals utilize physician anesthesiologists and nurse anesthetists. But in the private hospitals, it's nurse anesthetists only. And their practice is very similar to ours. They all use the same drugs. They all have the same inhalational agents. When we went to the operating rooms, when we were there, their operating rooms rival any US operating room that you would see. The differences are that in the rooms that the patients stay in, all the windows are open. There is no air conditioning. The families bring them food. Sometimes if they have no ability to pay, their care may take place in a parking lot under a tent, or they may have a mat in the hallway or on the sidewalk outside of the hospital. So they
Meaning
get
care, meaning post-op care, or that
no,
whole
like
anesthetic?
if they needed to be in the hospital for some reason. Now they actually have PACUs and they have ICUs. One of the pediatric hospitals that we went to see, so many of the children in Vietnam, one of the biggest issues with them is drowning. Freshwater drownings, because they have so many ponds on the farms to raise fish. And so these kids wander into the ponds. And so the pediatric ICU, they were all on propofol infusions. They were all on ventilators and they were on propofol infusions. But for those people who may come in and have pneumonia or whatever, and they need IV antibiotics, they may be outside in the parking lot under the tent. So a great disparity there in that country. I've been to Croatia. Croatia, of course, having been under, communist regime for a while, they are bouncing back. They have a great nurse anesthesia program. They are part of the International Federation of Nurse Anesthetists. And so their educational standards and guidelines are very similar to those of Western countries, very similar to ours. They're much more structured. And we got to meet with the nurse anesthesia students as well as the nurse anesthetists there. And they're also, their practice is very similar to ours. They're just now one of the nurse anesthetists there who was the representative to IFNA, who was our tour guide while we were there in Zagreb. He is, I believe, the first nurse anesthetist in Croatia to get his PhD. So they are advancing. Most of them now have master's degrees. So very, very interesting. I just came back before Cuba. We were in Cambodia, which again is an incredibly poor country. And even though they're supposedly an independent democratic country right now, we did not see that. They were not very open with a lot of their policies and their practices there. When we met with the nurse anesthesia students and they started to speak to us, they kind of got the evil eye from some of the physicians there and they got very quiet. But we often find that when we invite them to dinner and they're outside of their formal institutions, we find out a lot more about the reality of their practice than we learn in the formal meetings. And that's another plus of these delegations. We are not there for political purposes. We are not there to change anybody's practice. We are there to learn from each other. And they learn as much from us as we do from them.
Yeah, agree. Okay, well, I think that's a great overview of the Citizen Ambassador program, and we have something to look forward to, that email that's going to be coming. Do you guys know what month you're planning on doing that, or?
We are looking at either the end of April or the beginning of May.
Okay, great. Well, we'll all look for that email. I'm hoping to go. My daughter graduates from college on May 4th, though, so she probably get mad at me if I was in Greece, but hopefully it won't conflict because.
Well, I have to be in town until May 6th, so
it won't be during graduation.
There won't be a conflict for you.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad your schedule is like my schedule.
Yeah, and I do want to add too that we try to pick a little, well, especially like for Cambodia and Vietnam, we try and pick when it's not so beastly hot in those countries. But for Greece, because it's such a tourist destination, we want to go when the prices are a little bit lower than they normally would be during the normal tourist season, which starts up in June and goes through the summer. So that's another reason we kind of look for off months
Off months, yeah, okay, and that's great because it can get very hot in Greece in the
Yeah.
summertime, so and there's not air conditioning everywhere.
Right.
So, okay, well, wonderful. We're gonna wrap things up
Okay.
here at the Learning Curve, and we are so grateful to have had this conversation with you. I hope it excites some people. We want, I would just say, my husband is also a CRNA, so he joined me on the trip, and we probably knew, maybe 6 to 8 people. I think, didn't we have about 36 CRNAs with us in
We
Cuba?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
So we maybe had already known 6 to 8 of them, but we sure had a great time meeting, all the other ones that we hadn't met. And there's a lot of camaraderie because, of course, we just understand what everybody goes through. And there's a great exchange of ideas, even amongst ourselves. We come from all over the country, from all different kinds of practices, yet we share a lot of the same challenges and experiences. So it's fun to meet new people and have a great time and be able to call them friends going forward, because we know anesthesia is a very small world, right? So it just makes it
Absolutely.
even smaller. And then, of course, we have a lot of fun interacting with the nurse anesthetists in the country that we go to, because we find we also share a camaraderie with them and a lot of equivalent experiences. So we really relate to each other. So thanks so much for joining us today. I really
Thanks for
appreciate your
having me.
time, Debbie. And I guess we need to have you back again, and maybe you can talk to us about your ketamine clinic.
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
it's a great experience. So
Okay, yeah, that would be great. And we can throw in a little bit of research about what's happening in ketamine clinics these days. And so I'm going to hit you up. I'll give you a break for a
all
little
right.
while, and then I'll hit you up again
Okay, sounds
in the
good, Michelle.
future. So thanks
Okay.
so much.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we'll sign off.
Okay. Okay.
And thank you very much,
Okay.
everybody.